Even
Yeah.
though there's a negative going on, that doesn't mean everything about your day, everything about your life has to also be negative.
Hi, this is Jessica Simpson Taylor with Connected by Heartbeat, where we are helping build a more connected and emotionally enriched world. And this month and next month, the month of November, we will be celebrating families. And today we have a very real conversation and a very real family to talk about some extremely real situations that so many families are facing. Um, and I welcome to talk with me today is Alicia. Hi, Alicia.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so very much for agreeing to speak with me. And we know that your children will be joining us later in this segment. But just to come and tell everyone about your journey and just give us some insight and some hope that it's brighter on the other side. So um, I will let you start off and kind of telling us about. Um, your journey,
Mhm.
kind of where it started, and then we'll continue to chat from there.
Sure. So let's go back to, I would say, 2013. It was the fall, it was September. I was actually looking to get all of my annual appointments completed before the year was out, and my flexible spending account funds went on use. And, I was trying to check off all my appointments and see what I had missed and not, and so forth. So I ended up doing a physical. Through the physical, it came up that I felt like there was something wrong with my neck. I actually thought that there was a muscle that I had pulled, but you could physically see there was a
Mm,
strain on my neck. So I went did my physical. I did the whole thing. What came out of that physical was that I probably had a cyst on my breast.
okay.
And the reason why the doctor mentioned that is because I didn't have a breast cancer history in my family. I was at the time 38 years old. There was nothing pointing. There were no physical signs of cancer. I did a blood test. Nothing came out on the blood test where it would point towards cancer. So my doctor said, "I don't. You're so young. I don't think you're having any problems there. Think it may be a cyst." So she said, "Let's give it a couple months. Let's see where things go. It may go away on its own. And if it doesn't," she said, "we'll do, I guess, some imaging." I said, "Fantastic." Something that just about that didn't feel right to me. Like at the moment, it felt right because I was like, "Okay, great. It's nothing. It
Mhm,
means it's good, right?" Because you start
mhm,
thinking, could it be cancer? But then I was like, "Okay, that's great. The doctor is very
mhm,
positive. I'm good. Nothing happens." The very next day, everything happened. I'm a Christian and I believe that everything happens for a reason. My mother fell and cut her eye, her
mhm,
over her eyelid, and she got stitches and she needed to get stitches taken out 2 days later. I took her to the urgent care, and the doctor was just so warm. He was taking her stitches out, and he was just so kind and warm, and it was something that gave me the ability to be able to speak to him. And I asked him, and I said, "Would you mind doing a test?" I said, "I feel something on my neck and it's bothering me." And he said, "Well, you need to go see your doctor." I said, "I did, and I got this diagnosed." I said, "But it's something about it. So you mind just taking a look at it?"
mhm,
And he said, "Absolutely." He's like, "But you're going to have to pay another fee because, you're another patient. You're not your mother." I said, "Absolutely." So I didn't want to worry my mother. I had the kids with me, and I said, "Can we go in the other room, not say anything? Just said I got to fill out paperwork." And so I did. And the second we were chatting, he's asking me questions, but next thing you know, you see his face go completely blank.
mhm,
He gets serious and he start asking very pinpointed questions. And he says, "You need a mammogram. We need to get you in as quickly as possible." Mind you, this is like 6 p.m. in the middle of the week, right, at an urgent care. And I said, "Well," I said, "I called for a mammogram. The insurance company told me that I couldn't have one unless it was prescribed by me. I went to my doctor. They didn't prescribe it." I said, "I don't think I can get one." He goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. You're getting one tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Be there at 8 a.m. You're going to be the top priority. You're going to be the first appointment in the morning.
oh,
I'm
wow.
faxing everything right now, and you need to be there." And I said, is there something that I should be concerned about? He said, I can't speak. He said, I really just want you to make sure you get this done and let's get it out of the way. He said, it may be nothing, but let's just get it out of the way. I said, okay, that's great. So I figure, let me think positive. It'll be a cyst, like the first doctor said. I was like, I don't need to worry. Next day, I went by myself when it was business as usual. I went to the doctor, and sure enough, the doctor came out. It's a breast cancer, and then there's a name of the breast cancer, and then the head of that breast cancer came out to me at Anne Arundel Medical Center, and she said, I want to talk to you. He goes, we're going to do a biopsy. He goes, and then, but I'm going to need you to bring your support system next time. She said, after we finish the biopsy, then we're going to decipher what this is. He goes, but as it stands, it looks like cancer. It walks like cancer. It talks like cancer. Just be prepared. Let's go through the biopsy. I said, okay. So then everything was rushed. Next morning, I was there to do a biopsy.
So how are you feeling right now? When she said that, it looks like, it feels like, it walks like. So where were you in that moment?
To be honest with you, I couldn't receive it. In my mind, I was like, there is no way that this is happening to me. I am 38 years old. Yes, I am tired, but that's normal for a mother, but I am okay. There's no way this is real. This is just not happening to me. This is not real. So I was, I think, a little bit in denial.
Right.
Well, not a little bit. I was a lot in denial.
But you also were just trying to stay positive, right?
I was just trying to stay positive. And then the whole time
Yes.
I'm praying to God in my head, and I'm like, Lord, I know this is not happening to me. There's no way that this is happening to me. At the time, my son Ethan was 6 years old. My daughter Taylor was 10 years old. And I was like, there's no way this is happening to me. I'm like, it's just no way. I'm not even 40. Right. And so I left there. I was close to a mall. I went to Chipotle. I sat there. I got something to drink, and I just started crying, and I just couldn't come home. So I called my husband and I said, hey, I was like, I'm at the mall. I just left my doctor appointment. I really want to walk the mall. And he was like, are you okay? Because that's not like me. I'm a workaholic. So when I'm done with something, I rush to work. And I said, yeah, I just really want to walk the mall. I said, I'm right here. I just want to walk. And he said, okay. He goes, I'll pick up the kids. I'll cook dinner. He goes, come home when you're ready. I walked that mall, and all I remember is being a zombie. I had no positive feelings. I had no negative feelings. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to have any company. I didn't call anybody. Nothing came to me. I really was like a blank. My mind went kind of blank.
Right.
So when I finished walking the mall, I came home and I acted like a normal mom. We did the dinner, we did the bath, we did the bedtime, the cuddling, the kisses, the good nights, everything. I got in bed and I looked at my husband right before the lights went out because I didn't know how to tell him. I was like, how do I say this? So right before I turned the lights off, I looked at him and I said, hey, I'm like, can you turn the TV off? I was like, I could talk to you. He said, what's going on? And I said, well, I went to the doctors yesterday and this is what happened. I know earlier today, and this is what they told me. And they told me I need to bring my support system, which is you. They did a biopsy. We need to go in tomorrow. They're going to give me the results, but they said I need to come in with my support system, and that is you. And I said, you think you can take the time off? He's like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, I'll take you. So appointment was at 8:30 in the morning. We were like the first ones there. Everything was moving very fast.
Now, that morning, was it more somber? Did you just like, we just going to this appointment, we're really not talking about it? Did you just
wasn't talking about it. I just wanted to get there and get it done and over with. In the morning, I woke up and again, I was like in denial and I was like, let me get the kids ready. Let me get the lunch boxes ready. Barely made it to the car line. You know, that morning mud rush. When we're driving, my husband starts asking me, are you okay? It's, how come you didn't come home and tell me yesterday? And I said, I just couldn't talk about it. I was like, It's like, let's just get there. I think, let's see what they say. I said, I really don't want to talk about the what ifs and what not. I said, I'm not good at that. Like I'm
Right.
a very factual person.
Mhm.
So he said, okay. He said, but don't worry about it. He said, everything's going to be fine. I'm here and everything's going to be fine. We got there, and sure enough, I knew it because the head of the breast cancer came out to tell me. And she was like, it talks like cancer, walks like cancer, quacks like cancer. It's cancer. And she said, I'm so sorry. She said, but she said, the good news that we have, this center is an amazing center. And she started telling me all about the center. So to me, in my mind, I was like, I really don't want to know anything about the center and your capabilities. I really,
I don't want to have to go. I don't want to see
I
y'all.
don't, right. So I was like, she finished talking, and I said, to be honest with you, I'm interested to know, how do I get rid of it? I said, I have a 6-year-old son and I have a 10-year-old daughter. So how do we get rid of it? I said, like,
Yep.
and she's like, well, honey, she said, this is kind of what I want to tell you. She said, your mass is very large. I don't remember the dimensions. I think I blocked a lot of the details.
Right.
It was only on my right breast, but she said it's very deep in your chest wall, and it's inoperable. She said I will not be able to
Mm.
operate on it. So what we are going to do, we're going to try to give you chemo, radiation. If it's small enough where we can go in and operate, then I will. Until now, we need to get you going with a lot of these forms. You need to do power of attorney. Do you have a will? They start talking all these big words. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have a power of attorney. I don't have a will. I don't have a directive. I don't have
Yeah.
anything. And she
Yeah.
said, well, we need to get you in order. And I remember she said, you really need to go home and get your affairs in order.
Mm.
And when she said that, my whole world, like my mouth went dry, my eyes swelled up, my chest choked up. I mean, just I felt like someone gut punched me, and the
Yeah.
air came out of my lungs. And I said, this cannot be happening. I said, I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. I need to know how I'm going to fight this. And she
Right.
said, I just don't think you're understanding the severity.
Mm.
And she said, why don't we do this? She said, let's take it one step at a time. Let's get you through all of these testing, and we're going to get you
Mhm.
through. And I said, well, how would I know what stage I am? I said, because, between the past 24 to 48 hours, I've been online Googling and searching
Right.
everything.
Of course.
And I've been from
Yeah.
not being sick, being a cyst, to
Mhm.
being to dying. So I
Mhm.
asked her, and she said, well, she said, number one, stop Googling. She said, that's not going to help. And then she said, let's take it one step at a time. Let's do all the tests and figure out where things go. She said, but until you have surgery, we don't want to stage it because right now it's so far along that we
Mm.
need to see where things are to see if we can even give it a
Mm.
stage. What that meant to me, and what, from all my Google research, was that
Right.
basically it was so aggressive that they didn't want to give me any false hope. They didn't want to say 1, 2, or 3 because it was just too far along.
That's what I heard. That's when you said it to me, that's where my mind went. So I'm sure that's where most people's mind goes, right?
That's right.
Because you're trying to process this information that's so heavy and emotional, and something you don't, you feel in that moment that you don't have control over, right? But we know now, right, that we do. You went through that to understand that you did have more control than you thought you had in that moment. So the direness, of what she
Yeah.
said, that's the first place that your mind goes, is that, oh my gosh, you're going to tell me I'm too far gone for help, or, that type of thing. So I understand why your mind went there.
So it was
Yeah.
tough, but I would say the next tough thing about that process was that I was assigned a patient navigator, who's a person who's supposed to help you navigate the mental, emotional, and physical stress, and kind of guide you through resources. However, one of the challenges for me was that I've always had long hair. She actually came up to me and she said, "Oh," she said, "and I feel so terrible for you." She said, "You know, with chemo, you're going to lose your hair and you have such beautiful hair." And I'm looking at her like, you're supposed to be my patient navigator and you're supposed to be the sensitive person and you're supposed to be this person that helps me walk through this. So in my view, that particular space, I didn't feel that was my space where I will be taken care of. And I think
Mhm.
because of that interaction, it completely turned me off. And I
Mhm.
just knew that that place was not going to be the place that was going to treat me. It was,
Okay.
it just wasn't, I didn't feel it. I didn't
Yeah.
feel cared for, if you
Mhm.
may. And I
And
think
that's so important. That's
it's
important that
extremely
you
important.
identified it. It's important that you identified it and that you did something because of it, right? Because so many people feel guilty to
Mhm.
say, well, I didn't feel comfortable, but, and then they justify it away. But when it comes to your health and being an advocate and fighting for yourself, it's okay to be as picky as you need to be.
There
And
you go.
so I love that story. I love that
And
you said, wait, it's
you
not
said
good.
an amazing word here at to advocate for yourself. Prior to cancer, I was not an advocate for myself type of person. I was, let's just get it done and over with, and let's be a professional. Let's not complain person.
Right.
So, you mentioned, advocate for yourself. When you're going through a major diagnosis, I think that is the very first thing. I also know that as a patient, you're feeling so emotional, it's hard to keep facts together and to get through the list of questions, because as somebody's giving you may have 10 questions in your head, but somebody's giving you answers to questions number 1 and 2, you're so wrapped up into the feelings of
Mm,
the gut punch of answers 1 and 2 that you forget questions 3 to 10.
right.
So you do need, I would say, when you're going through a major diagnosis, you definitely need a notebook. You need to stay organized. You need to also have a good support system, someone who is compassionate but also factual, who can keep facts together and who can keep you on point, because it's
Mm,
very easy to emotionally get derailed and forget so many important questions that are part of that process.
right, right. And so you ended up finding a secondary care facility?
So I did. I ended up not being able to sleep, and through that process, I was sleepless nights. I was watching TV, trying to figure out what to do, and doing a lot of research, and ended up finding Cancer Centers of America. They had different locations. They had a Chicago, Philadelphia, I think New Mexico. There were several locations. I
Mhm.
selected to go to the Philadelphia because it's within driving distance of the DMV area, and they were really absolutely amazing. They're no longer there; they're closed. But
Mm,
there are other cancer centers of America, I believe, throughout the country that are still remain open. But I would say I called them in the middle of the night, and when I called them, you know, I couldn't even speak. I was just crying so hard. It was my first time actually kind of letting it out. I was in the basement by myself and on the phone, and I was trying to speak, and all I remember is trying to talk and going, like I'm
yeah.
talking about like that
Yeah.
really deep, heavy
Mm,
cry. And I remember the person on the other line saying, "It's okay. Take your time. I am here. You can continue to cry for as long as you need to and you want to. I am here. I'm so sorry that you're going through. I don't even know what you're going through just yet, but it's okay." Like, when you talk about an emotional coach who doesn't even know why you're calling, she didn't even know my name. I literally dialed, and when she answered, my voice fell apart and I just started crying.
mm,
And she coached me for, like, I would say 7, 10 minutes through my cry until I couldn't cry anymore. And then I apologized, and she said, "No, no, no, no." She said, "You will not apologize to me." She said, "I am so sorry." She goes, "So why don't we do this?" She said, "Do you want me to call you back, or are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm okay." And she said, "Okay." She said, "I'm going to ask you a series of questions so that hopefully we are able to help you." And it gave me a sense of this person care. She didn't even know my name. She didn't know why I was calling, but this person care. We went through the process and I scheduled an appointment exactly a week later. And I spent 2 full days at Cancer Centers of America. And I had an agenda. I had
Mhm.
back-to-back sessions with different doctors. And they can reconfirm and they asked me why did I go to get a second opinion. And I told them
Mhm.
that I did not like, well, I didn't, I wanted to just see how things went. And
Right.
they gave me a completely different treatment plan.
Mm.
Their plan was
Right.
slightly different, and I just felt that they were definitely the better option for me. They
Right.
offer me
Right.
the better quality of time and
Mhm.
I don't know, the more quality care.
Right. Mhm. So, did you, I know it was in Philadelphia. How much time did you have to spend there?
So the very first time I was there for exactly 2 full days.
Okay.
At the cancer center, but I spent 3 days in Philadelphia. I drove the
Okay.
night before. We spent the night at a hotel, and then they have a shuttle that picks you up. They feed you. They schedule everything. But I had everything, every test done, and
Okay. So the two
I
days were full of tests.
full
Okay.
exactly. Normally, I believe that their protocol calls for 5 days.
Okay.
But I asked them, I was like, I have 2 kids in school, they're little. I was like, I need to be able to come back home as soon as possible. And they were able to squeeze everything in a 2 day session. If anyone goes through that, I would definitely discourage them to do that. I would say, take the time to actually take care of yourself and do so at a pace level. I was just going a million miles per hour.
Um, and so did you have to return there for once
I did.
treatment started?
I did.
And
So the difference in treatment, and I think I want to say this because the treatment here locally in my local region, my breast cancer center, was that my tumor was inoperable, but it was also the type of cancer that grows quick and it spreads quickly, and it was already in my
okay.
lymph nodes on both sides of my arms, my armpits. So they suggested we will give you chemo first, radiation next, and then once we shrink it, we may be able to go in and do surgery to remove it. We'll see how it
Okay.
goes. But
Okay.
really, their outlook was that outcome wasn't that positive, in my view, the
Mm-hmm.
way that they were explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer Centers of America, the chief of surgery, Dr. Standifer, he said, I have a completely different approach. He said, what happens with chemo is that your body is very weak and your body will not be able to, in my view, he said, your body is not going to be able to take an aggressive surgery. He says, so my recommendation, he said, is that I go in, I take out as much as I can. He said, I can't guarantee how much you will take, I'll be able to take out. He said, but I'll take it as much as I can. May not be able to cure you. He said, but I may be able to give you more time. He said, and
Mm-hmm.
then once you recuperate 6 to 8 weeks after your surgery, then we build your body up in those 8 weeks. He said, then we start chemo and then we do radiation. But by then, your body
Okay.
should be able to take the treatment. In
Mm-hmm.
my mind, that makes sense to me. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided to go to that process. And I would say between the date that I was diagnosed the first week of October 2013.
Wow.
I was at Cancer Centers of America the second week in October. November 18th, I think, might have been the date that I had surgery, sometime in early November.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Cancer Center, in fact, wanted to schedule the appointment on the day that was my birthday. And I
Mm.
accepted, and they said, and one of the nurses said, it's something about this date. He said, well, how come this date sounds familiar to me? And then they said, it's your birthday. And my surgeon said, I refuse to cut you open on your birthday. He said, I'm not doing
Yeah.
it. He said, we're picking the
Yeah.
following week.
Right.
So the middle of November, I had surgery in 2013. January 2014, I started chemo in Philadelphia in Cancer Centers of America. I did my aggressive chemo treatments for 6 months there. So I would drive up once a week. But
Mhm.
then once it got to that I needed to have chemo 2, 3 times a week, and it was the later version of chemo, I brought that treatment here locally to an oncologist.
Okay. So you didn't have to spend a lot of time away from your family and like one big 2-month chunk or anything like that.
No,
Okay.
the longest time that I spent away from my family was when I had the breast cancer
The two
removal.
days.
The
Oh,
yeah,
okay. We had the removal.
yeah.
Okay. So let's back up and talk a little bit about what it looked like when you had to sit down and talk to your kids about what you were going through.
So for at the very beginning, there was nothing. There wasn't much I could say because I really didn't know what to say.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't. I was like everything was such an exploratory session. Like I was trying to figure it out myself. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the subject matter. I didn't know it myself to understand it, and I didn't feel that I knew enough to speak to them about it. So
Okay.
when I went to cancer center, they had a chaplain, and I remember they schedule a meeting. They ask you, are you spiritual? And if so, what is your religion? And then they kind of set you up with an appointment with your religious spiritual leader. And there was
Mm-hmm.
a chaplain, and he asked me, he said, what is your biggest concern? I said, that you're going to live. And I said, no, my biggest concern is not living nor dying. I said, my biggest concern is how do I address this with my kids? If I do die, how do I tell them? I said, I don't want to lie to them. Do I lie to them? I said, I don't know what to do with my kids. And he said, no. He said, the word of God says that we got to speak to the truth. He said, but we got to talk to children in the way that children understand. He said, no more and no
Mm-hmm.
less than is needed. And I would never forget that. And actually, I apply that to everything I do now with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? At whatever age. But he said the last thing you want to do is not tell them or lie, because if you end up passing away, they're going to be upset with you and with the world and with doctors, and they're not going to trust doctors. They're not going to trust
Mm-hmm.
anybody. They're going to be unhappy, and they're going to say they didn't trust you.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, what you have to do is you need to give them just enough information. And he gave me some
Mm-hmm.
pamphlets. He told me to tell the truth. He said, don't lie. They need to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
But also he said, you don't need to give them all the details and all the horrible things. He said, just give
Okay.
them just enough so that they know what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
when I came back, the night we came back, my in-laws were here with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
They left, and we had a family meeting with Ethan, who was 6 years old, and Taylor, who was 10. And I remember the first thing that came out of my mouth is that we're going to have a family meeting. And Taylor, who was my 10-year-old smart mouth, came
Mm-hmm.
out and said, I knew something was going on, and I knew you were hiding something.
Mm.
She said,
Wow.
about time. And my
So the
son,
chaplain was right.
the chaplain was right. So we sat down, and I said, Mommy has breast cancer. I said, I think it's at a it's a serious stage where I'm going to have a big and major surgery. I said, Mommy is not going to look well. And Ethan he was 6 years old. He would put his hand up. He said, Mommy, I have a question. I said, yes, son. He said, are you going to die?
Mm.
Right off the gate.
Whew.
And I had to answer that question. And the answer to that is, I don't know. And the chaplain coached me through this. That chaplain said, you have, they haven't staged you because they don't know if they can get it. So,
Right.
which means you really don't know. He
Yeah.
said, you could live, you could die. He goes, you need to tell him. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't know. And he said, so
Mm-hmm.
you could die. I said, possibly. I said, but I'm going to take all the treatments. And this is why I'm having surgery, so that I try not to die.
Right.
And he said, and then I told him that I would look sick. I would lose my hair. I said, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
look like an old lady. I'm probably not going to be able to walk, move.
Mm.
I basically gave them just general information.
Right.
And Ethan, he was like, are you going to lose your hair? And I said, I am. And he said, are you going to use a wig? And I said, I don't know. And,
Mm-hmm.
and then next thing you know, I said, I am going to be, then he asked me, he said, what does it mean you're going to have surgery? And I said,
Mm.
they're gonna cut my, he was 6 years old. I said, they're gonna cut my
Yeah.
breast off. I said, and I'm gonna be flat. And I said, flat like a pancake. And
Hmm.
he busted out laughing. I
Laughing.
started laughing.
Right.
And that kind of broke the ice. It was very
Yeah.
serious, but at the same time,
Hmm.
children have a way of bringing
Hmm.
light and life into
Right.
situations.
Right. Right. That is awesome that you were able to actually sit down and have a real conversation with them.
Mhm.
So from your perspective, what did the next months look like for them? Were there moments that you felt guilty for maybe not being able to do for them as much as you did, or did you just push and make yourself do it? Like, what was that journey like?
It was a tough journey. I would say for me, it really was a balancing act in which I knew I needed to take care of myself, but I also needed to take care of finances. I needed to take of
Mhm.
administrative actions at work in order to get my leave and to get
Okay.
FMLA and to get
Right, right.
disability. I
Hmm.
also met with the kids' teachers at school. So it really became a race against the clock. And I
Mm.
think that in a way, I think it was helpful for me because I never got a chance to go into my shell and say, oh, poor me. I never had the chance to do that. I was too
Right.
busy trying to get my life and my affairs in order for my kids,
Hmm.
um, to be able to worry for me. But then I was at the very end, right before surgery, I thought to myself, oh, I didn't do anything to take care of myself. Like I
Mm.
didn't get to go away with family or friends before I did that. I didn't
Right.
get to go to a spa. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get a
Hmm.
chance to take care of myself as a person. So if I had a chance to give advice to anybody would be try to find, even if it's a day or two, to just take care of yourself emotionally as a person. Because I think we often focus on taking care of the benefits, the household, the financials, the kids, even cleaning the
Right.
home, doing grocery shopping. You
Mhm.
get into, overburdened with the to-do list.
Right.
So
Okay. So, and what did your support system look like, and how important did that matter? I know in the beginning you said they said bring your support system, and then you brought your husband along, but what did that look like for him during that time?
oh, looking at him, I'm really amazed at his strength. As men, they tend to be more straight to the point. They tend to be
Mhm.
caregivers, but not that kind of caregiver, right?
Right.
So when I was kind of getting ready for me to even just to go through the surgery, he had to become the breadwinner. He had to become the homemaker. He had to become the children's mom and dad. So he had to take them to
Mhm.
school, pick them up, do the laundry. He had to cook for them. He had to help them do homework. He became that single parent to them, and he also became my main support system. He made sure that I got to and from appointments. He made sure that I was fine. He made sure that the bills were paid. He just really kept the entire household, going. I do know that at one point he tried to continue to go to work, but he ended up taking FMLA as well. And in order to be able to deal with all of it.
Right.
But to be
Right. It's
honest
a
with you,
lot.
looking back, I don't think I ever asked him how he made it through.
Mm.
I think I just watched him make it
Right.
through.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah. And it's not too late to have a conversation,
It's not too late, I guess.
to acknowledge that, Um, and what's funny is, and this is the topic of this, even though the situation is different, the topic of it is the same, right? So
Mhm.
I remember hearing a man discuss maybe a few months ago that when a woman has a miscarriage, everyone is checking on her. Everyone is checking on her. He says, nobody has ever asked me how I'm doing.
Mhm.
I'm hurting too. I lost a child too, you know? So I do think that's one of the things that is hard because he probably wasn't even wondering how he was doing because his attention was
Yeah.
on where the need was. you know, and
Mhm.
you and the children, you were the need, and he is used to providing and protecting and helping his family. So it's probably nothing he's even asked himself, you know. So that's definitely interesting. And hey, you could still go and have a conversation and add in more layers of healing for the two of you, you know. So
Absolutely.
how long did your family fight this fight? How long did you have to deal with this?
I would say from October 2013 up until about 2018.
Okay. So five
So
long
a good
years.
5 long years.
Ooh,
And a quick timeline, right? I was diagnosed with breast cancer October 2013. I had a bilateral mastectomy where I removed both breasts on November of 2013. I started chemo in January of 2014. That entire year, I did chemo, completed chemo with a lot of delays in between. I was in and out of the hospital because my kidneys and my liver was compromised. My heart couldn't handle it at one point. Just a lot of different
oh
issues.
wow.
So that happened there. Then I would say the following spring in 2015, that's when I started radiation. I finished late in the summer, finished radiation late in the summer. That was also tough because my skin was really burnt. It was, I was in a lot of pain, very, just difficult progress, I will say. That was
Mhm.
2014. The last few months of 2014, I actually spent trying to work on my reconstruction. So I was going to get
Okay.
implants put in, and then part of that process was to actually stretch my skin so that it could
Right.
accept the implants.
Hmm.
And I began through that process, and sometime late that summer, it was, and I remember it was a school year. The school year had just started, but it was like late summer, early fall. We were outdoors, and I remember a mosquito bit me under my arm. And I remember it
Hmm.
clearly because I was like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't do anything because I've been under chemo for so long and
Right.
my immune system was compromised. Well, I ended up getting a really terrible infection across my chest,
Mm.
and I had to go into John Hopkins. They had to remove all my skin, everything that I had worked for the past 6 months. To get my
From a
implants.
mosquito bite.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And it was terrible because you can see it walking through my chest, like
Right.
it was black, it
Wow.
was hot, it was burning.
Mm.
And I remember getting hospitalized that night. I went to John Hopkins. I got hospitalized that evening. They said, we're going to give you some medications, hopefully it'll stop. In the middle of the night, about 2 a.m., they woke me up and they said, it's not stopping, and we're going to have to roll you into emergency surgery. We're waiting for the surgeon to come in. He's at home. So I figure, okay, I got until the morning, 8 a.m. I'm
Hmm.
thinking business hours, right? I
Right.
was at about 4:30 a.m. He rolled in and they're like, okay, we're willing you into surgery. I didn't get a chance to speak to my husband because he was home with the kids. So I remember I called, he was asleep. I left him a voicemail and I said, hey, I said, I'm getting rolling into surgery. I pray I make it. If not, I love you. I love the kids. And I remember saying goodbye on a cell phone, not knowing if I would make it out of surgery.
Mm.
I went into surgery. When I woke up, the kids and Rick were there. It was the evening time.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, praise God, I made it. I'm here. And
Yes.
they're here. And I got to see them again. But that was the end of 2015. In 2016, I kind of took about 6, 7 months to just kind of regroup with my body. By then, my heart had taken a toll. So in 2017, I had a heart procedure to fix a little bit of the damage that had been done by chemo.
Mhm.
I would say it wasn't until the end of 2018 where I actually need revision in because I have a lot of scar tissue
Right.
and I'm in a lot of pain, but I've chosen to not go through anymore.
Mhm. I
things.
understand.
And I
I
think in the
understand.
next few months, I may end up choosing to pick it back up because I feel
Hmm.
healthy. I'm in a better place, but
Right.
I just said I need a break. I'm done. Like my heart is good,
Hmm.
my health is good. I
Hmm.
need a break. So
Yeah.
that was my journey. That was my
Yeah. And I think it's important too, to the point that you just made, is for people to hear it's okay if you decide that you don't want to keep, the reconstruction or whatever. If you just say, this is where I am and this is where, and that's okay.
Absolutely. You can change. It is okay for you as an individual to change your mind. I
Mhm.
personally, I actually made a choice to not do reconstruction. After
Mhm.
I started reconstruction, and then I went through the process where the mosquito bite, and I was in such
Mhm.
bad shape. I was like, I am not doing this again. I'm not going through any more
Mhm.
surgeries. And I was like, I'm not doing reconstruction. But then I would say once I was done with all my treatments and I wanted to feel like
Mhm.
a pretty woman again. And I was like,
Yes. Mhm.
I think I'm
Mhm.
ready.
You wanted that part of your essence of a woman.
I
Because you
wanted,
you never stop being a pretty woman.
oh,
You
thank
never
you. No,
stop
thank
being
you. Thank
gorgeous,
you. But
sexy, and all of that. So yes, let's clarify. Let's
thank you. No,
clarify.
and I appreciate that.
But
And
you
I'll tell you
never
what made it.
stopped.
I'll tell you what happened. I was in an office attending a meeting and I had a prosthesis, right? It was
Uh-huh.
like a bra with two inserts.
Yes.
And I remember
Yes.
I did this, and the whole thing kind of came out under my neck. It was the most embarrassing
That
thing.
was your cleavage. That was your cleavage
Listen, it
showing.
was so embarrassing to me. I don't know that anybody else noticed it, right? I think I
Yeah.
caught
Yeah.
it, but I knew it
Right.
happened. And I was like, this would
Right.
never happen to me again. And I was like, you know what?
Right.
I do like how my clothes fit with
Yeah.
the breast prosthesis. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready. So I changed my mind multiple times. And
And you
as you
can, and you
say,
can change it again
that
if you
is
want to.
okay.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's okay. I totally agree. That is 100% okay. And I love that it's you saying, with this journey that you've shared with us, that you're saying out loud to people, it's okay. Change your mind if you want to. It's okay. I don't think that's a decision that anybody can make for anyone else,
No,
you know, and you don't have to feel guilty for whichever decision you make or the change of decision that you make,
agree.
right?
That's right. And and I always tell, whenever I come across other women who may be dealing with the same situation, I always said, review your benefits. Don't forget that once you have breast cancer, most insurances will cover the revisions to your surgeries. You just need to be aware of your benefits because sometimes people say, I
Right.
don't, I finished my treatment 7 years ago. I don't think that they'll ever cover it. Oh, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
They will. You just got to go through the steps of doing the paperwork. So I would always say to people, feel free to change your mind. Feel free to find out what your benefits are, inform
Right.
yourself. So, because I
Right.
will say it does give you a lot more peace of mind to know that things are covered by insurance. You have more
Hmm.
freedoms
Yes.
to upgrade and to do things better
Yeah.
with better doctors as well. So
Right.
I think
Right.
that's really important. Mhm.
Well, I do thank you for sharing your story. I do have just a couple more questions because we know that the
Sure.
children are about to join us. So
Okay.
as we kind of segue into them coming on, I know, they were very young, as you explained, 10 and
Mhm.
6, and we know that now they're adults.
Mhm.
But that was a 5-year period. So, from 10 to 15 to, that's a long time from 6 to 11 where they've started to maturing into understanding what's going on,
Mhm.
and being more aware of everything that's happening. Um, so what do you hope that this experience has helped them take away? What are there some things that you've considered hoping that they learned from the whole situation?
Absolutely. I think the biggest one that I kind of remind them over and over is to move with faith. No matter what you do, no matter what happens to you, no matter how terrible it seems, move with God and move with faith. with God, everything is absolutely possible. Will it be perfect in the way that we expect it? Probably
Mhm,
not. But would it be
mhm,
perfect in God's way? Absolutely. And I think I always told my kids, I wanted them to see me not fold and
mhm,
become this weak woman. Because I think we all, um, at different times and different challenges, we all react differently.
mhm.
This in this particular situation, there are times that I've fallen and I'm like, yeah, I just want to lay on this ground, and because I'm falling and I don't feel like getting up and it
Yes.
hurts, and I'm just gonna stay on the ground.
Mhm,
But in this particular situation, it was so serious that I wanted my kids to say, you know, mom continued to press on no matter what, and she never gave up. She fought to be here with us. And at the end of the day, I'll be very honest with you, looking back, I had faith in God, but I was also at peace knowing that I would probably die. I
mhm.
was just asking and praying to God to give me more time so that I could be there with my kids, so I could teach Ethan how to cook food for himself and he could fend for himself.
Yeah.
I was asking God
And
to
not have to depend on a woman. That's
on
what that's
another woman. Yes, not have to depend on another woman or a woman.
right.
Also with my daughter, I was like, her hair was long and curly, and I was like, God, give me time for me to teach her how to do her own personal
Yeah.
hygiene and take care of herself, and be proud of who she is, and be able to, just manage her own hygiene and
Right.
routine, beauty routine. I was like, let me
Mhm,
teach her how to be a young lady.
mhm,
And God gave me that. I mean, I continue to go to work. A lot of people I could hear them at work. Some people call me stupid. Uh,
mm,
some people call me, well, she's stupid. Like, she doesn't know her benefits. Like, she could be at home getting paid and collecting a check. And I remember telling myself, I am here because I am, number one, if I'm home, I'm thinking about being sick. And I don't want to be home thinking about being sick. I had the choice, but I chose not to. I want to be here so that I can work and think of something else. Because I
mhm.
wanted to remain strong. I wanted to not be just a cancer patient. I wanted to be a professional. I
Right.
was a professional. I wanted to
Yeah.
continue to be a professional. But also, more importantly, I wanted my kids to see me push through a difficult time.
Mhm,
I wanted to be an example for them. I used to crawl up the steps in my house with my laptop.
mm, mm,
And I used to, and my husband used to say, "Do you want me to carry you up the steps? Let me carry you. Let me carry you." He's like, "I don't want to see you crawling." I was like, "Nope, I'm okay, thank you." And he's like, "But why don't you let me help you?" And I was like, "No, it's not about you helping me." I was like, "I need to know that I can do this for myself. I need to figure it out."
mm,
But looking back, I wanted my kids to see me go
mm.
through the struggle, but still keep moving forward.
Okay.
It
Okay.
didn't look pretty now. It
Right.
didn't
Right.
look pretty.
Any parts that you wish that you would advise to do differently that you haven't shared with us?
Absolutely. I think, again, through my entire journey, I was focused on my kids alone.
Mhm,
I never put focus on what I needed as the patient. I didn't put focus on what my husband needed as the primary caregiver. I also didn't put a lot of focus on what those around needed. There's some like my family, they wanted to see me and spend time with me. I was concerned about getting sick. I was concerned about, you know, spending time away from my kids. So
mhm,
I didn't take the time, and I still think I would have worked, but I think I should have done it slower. I should have taken the time to have quality time with those that I love, like quality time with my husband. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have had quality time with my family members. I wish I would have had more
So,
quality time with the kids, more time at home.
um, so when you're going through something like that, and this is a really honest question, right? Do you have the emotional capacity to work or think about, is my husband okay? Or do you even have that to give?
So I'll be honest with you. When I was going through it, I a little bit, yes. From
Okay.
my perspective. From my
Mm-hmm.
perspective, my capacity to give to my husband was it. I wasn't thinking about him. What did he need, or what is he going through? But I was always thinking of him whenever I thought I needed something. I repressed it so that I wouldn't have to inconvenience him because I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make it easier for him, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I wasn't thinking, oh,
So
is
you
he
did,
okay?
yeah.
I just,
But you did consider him. I mean, you gave the
I
capacity
did,
that you could give. Yes.
I
Yeah, I don't
did.
think we could ask you to do more. I
Yeah.
don't think it could be asked of you to do more because you were doing that, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and as far as working, everybody has to figure that piece out for themselves. Like if it was running you
Absolutely.
down and tearing your body down while you were trying to get better, that's one thing, right? That means, hey, I
Mhm.
got to step away. But if you were doing it for your own sanity to keep
I
yourself
was.
going, to keep that it was a part of your fight,
I
then
was.
that's understanding as well, you
Yeah,
know?
I was. And I also
Yeah.
realized that we're all built differently, right? Because to some, being at home with family, surrounded with family, and talking about it over and over is therapeutic.
Mhm.
With my
Right.
personality, talking over and over was never therapeutic. Like having to repeat
Right.
myself that this is what I've been through, to me, that's just put me in a
Yeah.
completely different headspace. I needed to go
Right.
into the office, and for me, going into the office and working made me believe that I was just a professional and I was not this sick woman. So for
Mhm.
the 6, 7, 8 hours that I was in the office, I was like, okay, I left the sickness behind me,
Yeah.
and I'm here and
I'm
I'm
just an
worried about
employee.
things. I'm just an
I'm just
employee.
a, oh, yeah.
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 And that helped
I'm
me.
making
But
it.
again,
And then also it probably gave you some satisfaction from the success that you were
it
having
did.
at work too,
It did.
right?
It did.
Yeah, I can
It
see
did.
that.
I
I
was
can
sitting
see
in
that.
meetings like, and I'll give you an example. One day I decided to take the day off, and I remember I was in a lot of pain, and I was so much was wrong with me that day, and I stayed in bed, and I started thinking, what if I die? And I was like, and my joints hurt, and this hurts, because I was in bed, I wasn't doing anything, right? I was bedridden,
Mhm.
and then the next day I was like, you know what? I know I'm in pain. I was like, I'm going to get myself ready. I'm going to go into the office. I know I'm going to be throwing up in a public bathroom that is as nasty as I don't know what.
Right.
But I was
Right.
like, I can't handle another day mentally of me being in bed thinking about how terrible I feel and how emotionally depleted I am right now. I was like,
Wow.
I need a distraction. So work was that wonderful distraction that made me feel good about myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
You fight differently.
I fight differently, and
You
I
fight
agree.
differently.
And
Yeah.
everybody fights differently. But don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Now that I'm older and my body
Mm-hmm.
has taken a beating and a toll,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes I'm like, you know what? Today I'm taking that sick day. Today I'm gonna ball
Yeah.
up. I'm gonna put some pajamas on. I'm gonna make myself that cup of coffee, and I may
Right.
watch Netflix, or Netflix may watch me, and that's
Right.
okay.
Yes.
You
Yes. But
learn.
it was a different type of fight. It was a different type of
It
fight.
was a different type of fight.
So I
Absolutely.
have one last question for you in this segment, and that is, when did you grow all that beautiful hair back?
Thank you. I don't know. So I would say I lost during my cancer fight that this was probably one of the toughest situations. Losing my hair was rough because before I lost my hair, no one knew that I was sick. Like if you were a
Mm-hmm.
stranger on the street, you didn't know I was sick. But the
Mm-hmm.
second I lost my hair in my eyebrows and my eyelashes, everybody knew I was a
Mm,
cancer
yeah.
sick patient.
Wow.
And that was mentally, it was tough for me, extremely
Yeah.
tough for me. um I would say I lost my hair in 2014, exactly 20 days after I started chemo. They tell you day 18 to
Mm.
21 you're going to lose your hair somewhere. In 18 I didn't lose it, 19 I didn't lose it. I was like, I think I'm doing
You were
good.
hopeful.
Day 20 I woke up and there was this the entire chunk of hair, like from the top of my skull, was just laying on the pillow. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like all of this was gone. And that was tough. That was again 2014. So I would say by 2018, 2017, my hair started growing slowly. And here I am.
Yeah, full and
I praise
thick and
God for
beautiful.
it. Thank you. No, I praise God for it, but but I do also take care of it. Like I take vitamins. I color it twice a year. I put not to try put heat on it. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of chemicals. I'm afraid of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but God has been good. I can't complain.
He has been. Well, we're gonna bring the kids on right after this
Okay.
break, and we're so glad that Alicia joined us. And next, in the next segment, we are going to meet her two children that she's told us all about, Taylor and Ethan.
Thank
Well, hello, 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 Ethan and Taylor.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. As you know, we talked to your mom in our last segment, and she told us about her cancer journey from her point of view. And
Mhm.
since Connected by Heartbeat is celebrating families, I really wanted to get at least some of the family on to talk about the journey from your perspective. So, your mom told us that when she first found out that she had cancer, that Taylor, you were 10, and Ethan, you were 6.
6.
Yes. So, I'll start with you, Ethan, since you were the baby. Do
Yeah.
you remember much about her telling you that she was really sick or anything that happened during that initial understanding of what was going on?
Um, I definitely don't remember the first time she said it, and when she did, throughout that whole time when I was young, it's like I was really young, so a lot of times I didn't even really know what it meant. I didn't really know she was like sick, like I didn't really know how bad cancer was until like that one time. I vividly remember going into the hospital, and I think she had just came out of like some type of operation, and she was like under heavy medication. And I think our grandma on her mom's side was there, and I don't know, we just went in there after an operation she had, and she was just like off a lot of medication. We tried to talk to her, she was being silly, and I don't know, but it's like I saw her in that hospital setting. That was like the first time I got a glimpse of what the whole situation actually was.
Do you remember any of your emotions at that time, or were you just kind of like, something's
Nah,
odd?
I was like, I don't know, emotions wise, like I said, I didn't really have a full grasp of what was going
Right.
on. So everything was like going about. I just remember she would have to leave a lot for some operations. Like she would have to go to certain places. And then there were a couple times that we went to Philadelphia for treatment. But
Mhm.
emotions the whole time I was fine. I was never really like too worried or concerned. I didn't know how big of a deal it was at the time.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Taylor, how about you?
So I'll say it was my first experience with cancer. Similar to what Ethan said, I was young, but I was old enough to understand that cancer was a pretty bad sickness. But I don't
Mhm.
think I understood that her cancer and
Hmm.
the level of her cancer was as bad as it was. And so I think as time went on, I realized how bad it was. But in the very beginning, initially, no, I didn't really fully understand the extent of what she was going to go through. Sorry, and what she was feeling.
Yeah. And that makes sense when you're smaller.
you.
Sometimes, of course, as adults, when we know the full, um, have the full understanding of really what's going on, it definitely hits us a little differently if things aren't really impacting you. And she talked about how your dad stepped in and he was there and helping you all with the day to day and school
Hmm.
back and forth and all of that kind of things and kind of filling in all those mommy and daddy gaps.
Yeah.
So I can understand that, it really didn't feel like anything was too off. Um, So, but she did also explain that this fight lasted 6 years, right?
Mhm.
So that's a very long time. So as it progressed and as you got older, were things a little different after you really started understanding what's going on?
I'll go first. I'll say yes. I think in the very beginning, in the very beginning, it seemed like, okay, mommy's not doing too well. She's going to need a little bit more care and support. But I think the moment I personally realized that things were worse than I would have thought was when I could see physically in the changes in her body, how the cancer and the treatment itself was affecting her. So I'll be completely honest. Through the whole process, through the whole 6 years, I think my way of processing it was to kind of tune it out. And I think I've mentioned that to my mom since, and it's kind of a regret of mine, but it's also something I couldn't really control as a child. And I think it was just a coping mechanism to just kind of not necessarily act like it wasn't happening, but act like everything was okay and normal, even though it really wasn't. And so there would be certain things like when my mom lost her hair, that was really hard. But I also think in that moment, I was just like, okay, so mommy's gonna get a wig. Like, that's funny, yay. And so it was just there were little things that I would kind of tune out, but then I would also feel it on my own. But I remember specifically some of the things that would make me realize how bad it truly was were like when my friends would see my mom, for example. So I had a lot of friends that had grown up with me for years and years. And so I was used to seeing my mom without hair, without eyebrows, and certain things like that. And so after a while, I adjusted to that. And I also think my parents did a really good job at not letting us know how bad it really was.
I
They
agree.
did a really good job at not letting us know how bad it really was. And so it almost felt like kind of like when you have to shave your head for surgery or something like that. Like she'll be fine. Like she'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so they did a really good job at making us feel like nothing life-changing was going to happen, but I would really understand the extent of what was going on when I would see my friends react negatively, or not negatively, but be emotional about the things they've seen my mom go through. And I just be like, what, she's fine, she'll be okay. And again, I think that was my coping mechanism, because when I would fully think about it or try and understand what was going on, or really like let my emotions sink in, it would be really hard. I remember crying in class one time because they spoke about cancer, and the teacher had to like take me to the nurse and everything. It was really hard. And so I think my mechanism to try and handle it was to just, I think, tune it out. So yeah.
And based on what your mom told us of everything that she did, trying to feel that she was healthy or having a normal day, go on work, I can definitely see that effort and how it paid off. Ethan, did you have anything to add to that?
I just want to emphasize how Taylor said how they did a good job of like keeping like how serious it was like under wraps. Like I didn't do a lot of the time. Like I knew she was like when she went bald, I noticed that. Of course I noticed that. And we would take all these different trips and stuff. But it's like never like did it run through my mind where I was like, oh, I might have to live without a mom. Like I never saw it as that because
Yeah.
they never really gave us that perspective. They gave us that perspective of, oh, everything's gonna be fine. Like we would still go to school. We went to they put us through a great school. They would still both go to work. They would cook amazing dinners. Like the lifestyle that we had as like through a childhood was still like held up like very strongly to the point where it's like I didn't, at least for me, until it got to those later years where I was like in middle school, like I never felt like I had to worry about living without a mom, or I had to feel like I was like some life, like Taylor said, some life changing stuff was gonna happen. I never really worried about it
Right.
because everything was still going smoothly. They did. I don't know. They kept it under wraps, so I don't know how they did
Yeah.
it. But I was oblivious through most of it.
If I may add, Jessica,
Mhm.
we did. I don't think they remember because they were so little.
Yeah.
We had a meeting where we discussed my cancer diagnosis, and Ethan was the first one to ask me the question: is there a possibility that I could die? And I don't think he remembers this. And I said, yes, it is possible. But also, we know that with God and faith, in prayer, everything else is possible as well. So I need you guys to hold on to faith and for us to pray. And they also went to a private Christian school, and their teachers and the entire school, they would pray every morning. They would have service once a week. And I know that I was lifted in prayer every single morning by 2-3 separate classrooms and in front of the entire church every single week. So I think that faith is what gave my kids the strength. And I don't think that they can actually conceptualize that because it was so natural to them, as it was part of their normal everyday. And but I think that part is what held them together. And I remember telling their teachers, I am concerned about their well-being and their emotional state. And their teachers will ensure that if they looked sad, they would get pulled to the side and they would pray, and their friends would have a quiet time to speak about their feelings. So they had a lot of outlets to talk about it, to pray about it. And I think that faith in God kind of kept us together.
And probably also gave them that peace, right?
Yes.
That they weren't so worried about it, that they weren't overly stressed about it, that that whole thing, that's definitely a village, right? When you have that many people praying for you and lifting you up on a daily basis, you know, in every aspect of your life. We know and believe here on Connect by Heartbeat that God, that is God. That is God. So Ethan, you said as you were talking, you said, I didn't really have a full grasp until I got to middle school. So was there something in middle school that stands out in your head?
My most vivid accounts or like memories would be I remember she would really struggle to like get up the stairs and things like that. And there would be times where I would have to like literally help her go up like every single step. And like in those moments I would be like, okay, yeah, like I was seeing like the physical toll that it was having on her. By then I had to have been maybe like sixth or seventh grade or maybe even fifth grade. But I don't know. I remember those initial years, I wasn't really just fully aware of what was going on. It had to have been like fifth grade or maybe sixth grade until I kind of understood more that she was genuinely sick.
Right.
It was
Do you
moments like
remember at all having conversations with friends, or was it something that you were trying to keep close to your heart that, you know, not let my friends know about it? Or did you discuss those types
um
of things with anyone?
I didn't really bring it up. Well, no, I did. Yeah, I did. I would like we said, we went to a Christian school, so we would bring up like prayer requests like in the morning. And like I remember on certain days where I would go to school, like she would have an operation or whatever. I would send in the prayer request to my teacher, and the class would be my like a friend next to me would be like, "Well, your mom has this," and I'll be like, "Yeah," and I tell him, but I didn't have a lot of details, so that's kind of like what the extent of it was. I didn't go into
Right.
deep conversation, but my my close friends knew. Cause yeah, my close friends knew because sometimes they would come over to the house, and then those are the people that I just talk to all the time. So my
And
close friends.
what was their level of support for you? Like, do you, when looking back, do you feel like it was important for you to be able to talk to your friends about it, or what do you feel
Um,
about that?
honestly, I didn't really talk to my friend. I mean, I told them about it, but when I didn't talk to them about it, you know what I'm saying? So
Okay,
it's like I
gotcha.
found like a good way, like the main way I got through the whole situation without like feeling any emotional like downsides to anything was like taking my mind off it. Like me and my best friend were in the band, and me and him were like we would play our instruments, we would go on band trips. Like it was a lot of stuff to take my mind off of that. It's like with my friends, I would just it was always normal. We would have silly dumb conversations during lunch. We would like trade snacks and stuff. Like I don't know. I never
Regular
had
middle
to.
school stuff.
Yeah, I was a kid in sixth or seventh grade. I was just doing dumb stuff with my friends, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
throughout the school day, throughout the course of a week after week, it would help me just not think about it for the time being.
And Taylor, you talked about, you know, how your friends reacted when they saw your mom. Did that spur any conversation amongst what you were going through or what your mom was going through?
I'll say I think my friends stayed away from the conversation purposely because they knew it made me very emotional. And so
Mhm.
there would be times when I say, like, if the topic would come up in class, or if someone asked, like, we're in middle school, early high school, so they'd ask about our parents, like, what do our parents do for work? So it'd be something simple like, what does your mom do at work? And then I would automatically
Mhm.
think, wow, my mom's not working, she's at home really sick. So
Right.
there would be something simple like that that would trigger an emotional response for me. And so I think I'm not sure if Ethan experienced this, but I experienced a few times in class where it was like, my emotions would overwhelm me. And that's what would drive me to, I guess, kind of, like Ethan said, take my mind off of it. And
Mhm.
so I think my friends knew not to try and ask me questions about it. They just knew that my mom had cancer. And then I'm pretty sure a lot of my friends also had moms that were friends with my mom. And so I'm
Right.
pretty sure that their mothers may have communicated to them to an extent, like, what's going on with Taylor's mom. And,
Mhm.
be maybe telling them, like, don't, just to be sensitive about the topic, I think. So
Right.
I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. I didn't really talk about it with my friends. Even to this day, I still don't remember ever having a conversation with my friends about my mom's cancer
Me
ever,
neither. I can't think
because
of anything.
because it's always been a very touchy subject, and whenever it would
Mhm.
come up, it would always just be like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what my experience was like.
Mhm.
And so, yes. But then I also remember my parents, like we said before, they did a great job of making sure that we didn't really see the worst parts. I remember
Mhm.
specifically, and I'm not sure, I think I may have been like 12 or 13, but I was going to make a joke saying my parents shipped me off to New York. But
That
they
is
had
true.
sent me, yeah, my parents had sent me to one of
They
my
did do that.
aunt's house. Yeah.
That's funny.
They sent me to my aunt's house for about a month
Mhm.
during the summertime, and I stayed with one of my aunts. One of my aunts that I never really ever spent time with. So it was a really interesting time because I bonded with family that I never spent more than like a family reunion with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, and then I shared that month with three of my other cousins that were my age. So I had
Okay.
two cousins. I had two cousins that were, I had one cousin that's
Mhm.
1 year above me. Then I had one cousin that's 3 years above me. And then I had one cousin that's 3 years below me. So it was a
Okay.
small group of girls, and we're
Mhm.
all in this similar age range. And we had the best month in New York, the absolute best time. I remember that month in New York like it was a highlight of my life because I'd never spent so much time with my cousins before because we're all kind of spread out. And then it was my first time in New York, I believe. And I went to Coney
Mhm.
Island and I went thrift shopping in this huge store. We went sightseeing. And so for that full month, I'm pretty sure my mom was at home very, very sick, probably going through a lot. But during that time, like Ethan said, there were just things that would go on through life. And I'm pretty sure my parents set that up on purpose. I don't know
I'm
for
sure.
what reason or what was going on specifically, but that kept us in a place where we didn't directly see the worst parts of everything. And I think that made it easier so that when we came around, it was like, yeah, mommy's not feeling well, but we didn't really see everything.
Right.
So I think that made it a lot easier. And yeah. Mhm.
So, Mom, what's your memory of that time frame?
You know what? So they both have about 50% of it right. And I like to say that so New York was definitely done on purpose. We have an amazing family, my husband's family, my husband and his parents and his family, because they're local. They were very amazing at being an amazing support system for us in many ways. The New York family took the girls and had the summer. And yes, that was one of the most difficult times. Um, our local family was, cooking meals and deliver them here at home on Sundays. They would just knock on the door and leave. They wouldn't even come in the house. I remember that. I don't even, to this date, I don't think I recall who exactly made the meals. All I remember is hearing the doorbell ring and saying, "Oh, somebody dropped off an amazing meal," and I would get a hot
Mhm.
plate upstairs in bed. But I was so in and out with medication. I really don't remember a lot of the details. What I do think is that the kids have actually suppressed a lot of their emotions and their memories. And I'm finding out as I listen to them talk, they have forgotten a lot of what they went through, or they purposely have suppressed it, because they did see a lot of it. In fact, I remember Taylor being in the back seat when I was on my way to the emergency room, and sitting in the back seat and just crying. And I remember her crying quietly. And I also remember that I was in such bad shape that I wasn't in a place to actually ask her how she was doing, because I was afraid I would fall apart in front of her. And I remember me suppressing my emotions because I knew I was not in a strong place to hold her through it. But I would tell Rick, I think Taylor needs to talk to somebody. I would text her teachers and the chaplain at school and say, hey, can someone make sure that Taylor is okay, and she needs prayer, she needs a support system. And the church and the school really rally around the kids. Same thing, what I was saying, I have this vivid memory. I came back from the hospital and they told me that my heart function was extremely low, and they're like, if your heart function goes below so and so, you may go into cardiac arrest. And I remember sitting in the bed and I could barely breathe and my heart was barely functioning. And Taylor came in the room and she said, Mommy, I just want to sit with you. And I said, okay. And I felt like I could actually die on this bed and I don't want her to be here, right? But I remember, and I said, honey, I'm not feeling too well. And she said, I know, Mommy, but I just want to hold your hand and I want to watch this movie. Can you watch this princess movie with me? And I remember me saying, okay. And she held my hand so tight. And I remember telling God in that moment, Lord, if I'm going to go, this is not the moment for me to go. Like, my child is sitting right here. And I remember taking a breath, like, like barely breathing. And I remember praying and focusing on my breathing so that I would be okay. So I think that Taylor in that moment gave me the strength to make it through that night, because that night was extremely difficult for me. The same thing with Ethan. There were times when I could barely breathe or walk, and he would hold my hand and my arm, and he would immediately, like a gentleman, would put his arm like this, and I would just put my arm, and he would walk next to me step by step. No matter how slow I walked, he would just sit there. Same thing with going up the steps. There were times that I would crawl up the steps and Ethan was stand right next to me, cheering me on and talking me through that process. And I remember me using every single one of those items as an experience to say, remember, keep moving forward, never give up. It doesn't matter what happens, never give up. God knows what he's doing with me. And I think in some ways, shape, or form, I'm hearing them talking. It's like, I think they suppressed a lot of those memories. And I think it's self-preservation.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't mean that the core essence of the things that they learned during that time isn't a part of what they did carry through and what came through as they became adults. Even if they didn't remember the exact moments, it's the messages, right? It's what you demonstrated to them. If you think about what you've heard today, what I've heard this whole time is, this is how our parents made us feel, right? This is how we felt. This is what they did to still make us feel like it was normal, like everything was okay, like everything was fun. Oh, something's a little off, but it's okay because things are going to be great. They didn't have a fear of you dying. Like, that says a lot. But I am curious in this moment with Ethan and Taylor, listening to your mom tell the story that she just told. How does it make you feel knowing that the things that you did, even in those moments that you may not remember, helped her push forward or gave her the strength that she needed in that moment?
It gives me a little bit of relief because, like I said in the very beginning, I think, like Mom said, suppressing my emotions in that time, because I can recall like doing that. I'm not going to say I remember doing it then, but looking back, I can think about the moments that I have forgotten and thinking, for example, if she were to say, do you guys remember when I had this surgery or when this happened? And I would say, no, I don't remember that at all. But realistically, I think it's there. It's just that it was a regret that I kind of had, like suppressing my emotions during that time. And I feel like my fear now as an adult or before, because I've had this conversation with my mom before, but I think after everything was over and after everything was okay and she's been in remission, I think the fear was thinking that back then I didn't do enough or like I wasn't a good support system or like I didn't care or like I may have been cold or like I just didn't have a care in the world that she was going through cancer. And so it feels good to know that she knows that we love her and that we wanted to support her back then. Because that's really all we wanted. I think me suppressing and Ethan probably too, suppressing his emotions, we did that because the worst, our biggest fear was losing our mom. And I can't imagine what life would be like without her. And I don't want to cry, but even like today, it's still hard to talk about. And so I think, yeah, like I remember on Halloween, we spent Halloween in Philadelphia, close to her hospital. And the whole
Remember that.
time, I don't think she was doing well. She didn't come out with us for Halloween. The whole
Mm-mm.
time for Halloween, she was in the hospital, not doing well. But we went trick-or-treating and we had a great
You had
time.
a great time.
That was one of my favorite Halloweens.
I'm just
Like
remembering that now that you
to
mention
this
it.
day, I don't think
Mm.
I've had a better Halloween than the Halloween that we spent at the hospital with mom, and then we went trick or treating afterwards. Like that's crazy to me because it's like it's weird that every single experience that we had where she was really going through something hard, there's some extremely positive aspect about it at the same time that kind of makes us like forget about what happened in a way, but I think also just appreciate that we still had our childhoods. I appreciate having a childhood. And I appreciate the fact that my parents put so much effort into making sure that I wasn't a sad, depressed child, constantly thinking about the fact that my mom could die. And so, yes, when the moments did arise where I thought about, wow, my mom could die, it was really, really, really hard. But it feels good now to know that she knows that we cared and that we were there to support her. So
Yeah. Same for you, Ethan.
Yeah, essentially. For me, it's like I'm realizing how much like the little things matter. Like I think they definitely and that's in day-to-day life too, but especially for our situation, the little things definitely mattered. And it's like I think we Taylor and I did our best to kind of play our roles in the family of like a support
Mhm.
system. Like when we were home, like I remember mom would be sitting on the couch, like just recovering, just resting. Like dad would cook dinner. We would bring her plate and then we would go and we wash her dishes, like just fulfilling our daily household roles, is the little stuff to make sure that everything from a day-to-day basis flows smoothly. All that stuff that we did naturally, we're looking back on was like this stuff really had an impact on how everything turned out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Especially with dad. I feel like one thing I don't recognize, of course, mom had cancer, but like dad was like really holding things down. Like he was hustling. Like looking back on it, like he was
Yeah,
really holding things
seriously.
down. Now that I look back and think about it, like dad was running everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, because we haven't really talked about dad much,
Yeah.
I remember this was at such a crucial time in our lives where Ethan is in elementary school going to middle school. I'm in
Yeah.
middle school going to high school. So that's a very important time in just I think character development and everything like that.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
so my dad, I remember he would pick us up from school and he would take us to the park. He would
Yeah.
literally pick us up from school and take us to the park. And then we would go to the grocery store and he
Every
would cook
day.
dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, after
I
coming
remember.
home from work, he would go and work a long day at work. Then he would come pick us up from school. And
Hmm.
then he would take us to the park and we would play at the park. And we would never want to leave the park. And I
Hmm.
remember when we were at the park, I don't ever remember Ethan and I like being sad or thinking like our mom has cancer or being on the playground telling kids like, feel
Right.
bad for me. My mom
Of
has
course.
cancer.
Yeah, of
I
course not.
think I think we I think we built up a resiliency And we, like mom said, we had a lot of faith in the fact that she was going to be fine. So yeah, and I just want to give a lot of credit to dad because he cooked us every dinner. He cooked us all the
Yeah,
food.
man.
He made so much good food. He took us places. He took care of mom. He did a lot. I'm sure he did a lot of things for mom that we didn't see, especially after we went to sleep at night. And we were still spending summers at my grandparents' house. So that's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
time.
true.
That's a lot of time that we didn't see mom during that time as well. And so life went on as normal. And my mom is very, very strong for being able to. I didn't even remember mom. I think where did we made a trip on Easter or something like that to Washington, D.C. Even mom would do things with us still with cancer,
Mhm.
no hair and everything, walking slow, but she would still come out with us. And so my parents were really, really strong. And I think it was mostly the strength of my parents that we recognized, that we took in for ourselves, and we just embodied that same strength. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. And I will say this from an adult perspective, and I have not had this conversation with your dad, but I bet he looked forward to that park every day too, because he could just let y'all
Yeah,
go play.
yeah, it
Yeah.
goes for him
He
too.
can have a
He needs some
woosah
fun. Yeah,
moment,
Yeah.
just
And
sit
he would just
there
sit there
and
and he
not
would just
have
sit
to
and
worry about
chill.
anything.
Yep.
Yeah, that probably
Yeah.
was his. So that he probably took you very quickly every day.
yeah,
Can I
yeah. He
stay
definitely
longer?
probably looked
Yes,
forward to
baby,
it.
you sure can. You know.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go to the park. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I
yeah.
know it
So
got to the point. I remember we would picked up, and me and Taylor like would laugh about this. We would because when we would leave our school, there would be a right turn to go home, or there would be or there would be a left turn to go like to the grocery store, to the park or something. And me and Taylor would get in the car. We'd sit quietly until that
We
turn
would
came up,
sit.
and then we would turn
see,
left, and then we would start laughing. We'd be like, "Dad, where are we going?"
Where are we going?
He would
Every
be like,
single
grocery
time
store
we
apart,
would get in the
grocery store
car.
apart.
"Yeah."
We
He'd be
would
like,
get in
"We're
the
going to
car.
the grocery store. We're going to
Yeah.
the park." Like
And
it was.
so that would always be like the
That's
big
funny.
question. That would be the big question because, yeah, he is right. It's a right or left. And if we
Yeah.
would turn left, it would be either a good thing or a bad thing because Ethan and I hated the grocery store.
Grocery
Oh
store.
man,
We
we hate the grocery
hate.
store.
We hated going to the grocery store. And dad would always say, well, you love to eat, but you don't like the grocery store. That
Yeah,
makes no
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
So
still says that.
the big question would always be, are we going to the park or the grocery store? Because it's either
Right.
yay or
Oh, we going to
no,
pick
take
up
me
food.
home.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we would still be in our school uniforms. Oh my goodness, we
Yeah.
would be so ready to get home.
And then we
But
would sometimes see people we knew in the grocery store after a
yeah,
long day. And I would just be like, no, I look a mess after school. Like, it's just crazy that we didn't really worry about I think the thing is, we didn't worry about mom's cancer so much because my dad was so
Right.
strong.
Yeah.
We continued our lives as normal. And yeah, that's the strength of my parents that they passed down on to us. So yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
That's wonderful.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I feel
So
like
I have to give your mom an opportunity to answer this question because we didn't talk about it during her time frame. But Alicia, how long have you been?
I'm sorry, I think I lost you there for a minute.
How long have you been in remission?
So I have been in remission officially since I finished chemo, and that was in 2015.
mm,
It is
almost a decade.
2024, so that is actually 9 years.
Wow, yay.
So they tell you that the 5-year mark is the magic number. So needless to say, God has been good.
Awesome.
God has
That's
been
wonderful.
good.
Wonderful. So you all spent we talked a lot about your younger years and kind of going into those middle school, high school years with your mom still battling cancer. Now she's in remission, almost 10 years. The two of you have now become adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things that I like to do in any interview that I do is I like to give some practical applications, some things people can really use, things that can help people. So I think we've talked a lot about what worked for you if there are younger children involved when a parent or a family member may have cancer. But are you able to look back as an adult now and say, let's say if it's a child that is old enough to be aware of what's going on,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Can you offer any advice to them of some things that might help them be able to handle the stress and the pressure? Some things that you could advise them to do?
So I think one of the things I don't want to be confused here is that my parents they were always honest with us about what was going on. So there was never
Mhm.
a time where we didn't know what was going on. I think the only thing they kept from us was maybe the extent of what was going on, like how bad it was. And so I think that that may be okay to keep away from your children because that can be extremely traumatic. And I think the traumatic moments that Ethan and I have experienced when we were younger, we probably have suppressed. And the ones that I do remember, like whether my mom was vomiting or, if she's crying or she can't walk and she's in pain, it's like, you never want to see your mom hurt. That's like one of the worst things that you can experience in your life is seeing your mom, like your mom hurt. Like that's one of the worst things that you can ever experience. And so I think maybe I'm not going to say hiding the details, but maybe it's best for kids to not see everything because those things, like what you see, will stick in your mind regardless of whether it happened or not. It's reality, but it'll stick in your mind even if you tell your kid, yeah, I threw up 6 times today. That's not nearly as bad as you watching your mom throw up 6 times. You know what I mean? So there's just certain things
Yes.
where it's like, I think making sure that you have a support system so that your kids don't have to be the only support system, because I think it can be something that's extremely traumatizing in the long term. Or in the short term, I mean, because as you grow up as an adult, you realize, okay, my mom's okay, she's fine. But I think it'd be really hard to imagine a younger kid witnessing something like that on a random Tuesday night and then having to wake up and go to school the next day. And so the little things that we did experience like that, where my mom was really sick and it was really hard to process, I think stuck with me. And I think my parents did a good job at not letting us see too much of it to the point where we were depressed or feeling like helpless. So I think being honest, letting us know what cancer was. It was a sickness that has no cure, but we're going to try and beat it. I remember specifically her telling us she never told us that she was going to be fine for sure. Like that was never a thing. I think I always knew in my mind, and that was the scariest part, was the fact that there's a possibility she may not be okay. But it was always like drilling in the fact that we're going to do our best and that she's going to fight and that we're going to have faith. And so, yeah. Yeah.
Ethan,
That's
any
my
thoughts
advice.
from you?
I definitely say I kind of have like 2 points. One is to definitely you gotta keep yourself busy. Like I know I definitely had things going on like within school. Like I was involved in the band. I was in like a couple clubs. Like I had stuff to like I had my own personal interests that I was able to like utilize. Like I was playing an instrument. I would play chess. I was in chess club. I did this and I did that. So it's like it's important that as a kid you have things that you can take your mind, like things to take your mind off those things. Like you have to continue to like try to find the things that bring you joy. Like I know it's like even
Yeah.
though there's a negative going on, that doesn't mean everything about your day, everything about your life has to also be negative. Like you still have the right to find that joy. And a lot of that also comes from like we talked about like your faith. You have to also have that faith and have that courage that the situation you're going through, that God's gonna pull you out of it and heal you from it. And that kind of in itself kind of brings you that peace. But the joy has to be bought from you. Like you have to go out of your way to find the things that'll make you happy in the tough times. So it's a lot of it does depend on the parent, of course, but as long as the parents do their best to, like I said, like Taylor said, keep the child like informed, like be honest, but also like try to save them from all like the trauma that could possibly come with it by utilizing other things, such as whether that be instruments, sports. Like there's so many things that kids can be involved in nowadays that can take their minds off of things. I feel like there's a lot of resources out there. So
I agree. It sounds like one of the biggest things too that they would also have to do is free themselves of any guilt, right? Um, because sometimes when we feel like it's our obligation to help, and we decide to do something else, well, I'm not going to be home. So what if dad gets sick? What if mom gets sick while I'm gone? Maybe I shouldn't go to the football game. Maybe I shouldn't go hang out with my friends because they may need me, right? And then there's a guilty feeling that goes with that sometimes they, may stay. And it's not just children and adults. It's plenty of people going through struggles, right? Where they feel like people may depend on them. Oftentimes we hold ourselves in our own box and not allow ourselves to breathe or, to go sit at the park, right? To get that downtime. So I think, though I have not had your experience, just listening to what you've gone through and having talked to your mom about everything she was feeling, and it sounds like that might be something too that people need to consider, that it's okay not to feel guilty. Free yourself of that guilt. Alicia, what do you think related to that topic?
No, thank you. I think that the kids have a very good point. Trying to keep your life as normal as possible, I think is important. I know that was a goal that Rick and I both had. Also, both Rick and I, as a couple, we were very intentional in building a strong support system. And when I said building it, our family was always there. Everybody offered, but it was up to us to align our family members, our friends, and our support system to, number one, not burn them out with a specific recurrent task, but to give them opportunities to help us. Because I also figure out for the longest time, I didn't want to burden people. And what I felt, I was pushing people away. So by allowing people to come in and actually help me out, it also gave them an outlet to cope with what I was going through and with the guilt that they might have had for not being able to do more than. So between our family, our friends, our support system, really my in-laws were absolutely amazing. They were here every time I had surgery. They were here. The entire family, my husband's family, is local to the area. So every time I had surgery, they would come over. I would be upstairs with the doors closed, and I could hear downstairs there was a big gathering and people were coming in and out of the house. There was a lot of laughter. I could hear the kids playing and smiling and laughing. And that truly kept me alive. Sometimes it kept me up, right? And I was like, oh man, I can't sleep. But then I would hear my kids giggle and I was like, oh, they're having a wonderful time. So it also, I think it was important not only for the kids, but also my husband, who was going through it with me and who was actually maybe even going through it harder than I was. To keep him together. So my in-laws, his aunts and uncles, as Taylor mentioned, she was sent away for a month in New York City. And, that was absolutely awesome. Our friends at our school, we have longtime friends for life that, our kids have gone to school together. They would check in on me and say, okay, I know you're having surgery on such day. Can I bring you food? Can I pick up the kids? The kids have soccer on such and such day. What can I do for you? And I would actually task them, and I would say, okay, I'm okay dropping them off in the morning, but I'm going to have a procedure and I won't be able to do it in the afternoon. They said, don't worry about it. We'll take snacks. We'll pick him up. We'll take him to dinner. By the time the kids came in the house, they already had done their homework. They had gone to football practice, soccer practice, band practice, whatever that may be. They would be brought home and they would be happy. By then I was already comfortable and rested. And they would just come, take a bath and go on about their night. And they would come tell me everything that happened during the day. And having the ability to have that level of support system to keep their life as normal and as busy as possible, I think that was the key for them. But I would also say, you know, Cancer Centers of America in Philadelphia, that is, it's no longer there. They also set up a system in which the kids and the family members had a support system at the second you walk through the door. They had an agenda for you as the patient to go take care of whatever it is that you needed to take care of. But they also had fun stuff for the kids to do. They had ice cream, they had face painting, they had balloon making. I mean, you name it. It was like a party atmosphere. So I remember me going to Cancer Centers of America and dreading the fact that I was going in there for surgery or procedure or chemo. But the kids were looking forward to it. They had their costume on and they knew that they were going to get candy and giveaways and ice cream. So we always incorporated, even when they came in my hospital room, I would ask the nurses, could I have extra juice boxes and extra cookies for the kids? And they would always look up to the extra stuff. And I would say, guys, I got you chocolate milk. You know, guys, I got you, you know, Jello. And they would be excited about that. And they would be doing homework in the emergency room with me or in the hospital room. But they were so happy eating that cookie and that chocolate milk that they actually forgot that they were in the hospital. And I also make sure that I communicated with them. And as Taylor mentioned, never lied to them. But I also gave them enough information for them to know what was happening, but didn't give them the details because I didn't feel that was necessary for them.
Right.
So I think that striking a balance of not lying to your children, because they do need to, at that very vulnerable time, they truly need to trust you. And if you don't talk to them with the truth, you lose them. And I think that was something that was shared with me by different preachers and the church and everybody that, you know, counsel me. And they said, whatever you do, do not lie to your kids. Do not tell them you're not going to die because you don't know. So I remember Ethan asked me that question and he said, Mommy, are you going to die? And I said, to be honest with you, Ethan, I don't know. I pray I won't. I said, so that means that we all have to pray that I don't. But I don't know. And I would also warn them before I had the surgeries. I would tell them what would happen to me. I would tell them, you know, I'm taking my breast off, so I'm going to be flat like a pancake and I'm going to look really, really bad. I'm going to look really, really sick. I would warn them about what was coming. So by the time it actually happened, they wouldn't be completely shocked. There was one time when I came home from a surgery that Ethan said to me, I know you said you would look bad, but you look terrible, Mommy. She said, I didn't know it was going to be this bad. And he actually said that to me. And, you know, and
I see why he suppressed that memory.
I don't recall that one. I don't recall.
No, but I'll tell you that gave me comfort. That also gave me comfort in me saying, well, honey, I said, I know I look really bad because we just drove for 2 hours. I would also explain to him why. I said, Mommy just really needs to sleep and I am in pain. I said, so why don't you do this? And I would find ways for him to help me. I would say, I'm in really bad pain right now. So why don't you do this? Go get me some water and you can help me drink the water. And he would do that. He would go get a cup. He would put a straw in it and he would actually give me the water, put the straw in my mouth. And so we kind of fed off each other. And like I said, I gave enough so that they knew that I wasn't hiding something. But I also didn't give them details to the point where they had to stress my stress. That makes sense.
One resilient woman. Just to imagine that you still had the mental capacity to have the level of conversation with your children that you did, the gentleness, and while you're in the middle of that much pain, it's just remarkable to me. It's just remarkable to me. Taylor, was there something you wanted to say earlier? It looked like you wanted to.
I think I kind of forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
But I think I was just going to say something along the lines of, my mom mentioned marking the balance. I think it was very important that she was honest with us, because there were moments, like, if we're just being transparent, moments where like mommy had to throw up, and there were like 15 to 30 seconds where you had to have the puke bag or it was going to be somewhere. on the floor, in the car, or wherever. And so there were just little things like that where it's like there was a level of maturity and knowledge that we had to have as students, as her support system, to know what was going on. So I think it's very important that, like she said, you keep parents going through it, keep the kids involved in a sense where it's like, give us something to do so we don't feel helpless. And then also educate us about what's going on to an extent so that we can help when it's needed, because there were plenty of times where it was needed, where Ethan had to help mom up the steps, or we had to know where the vomit bag was. We had to know what we couldn't warm up in the microwave. There were certain things that if we put it in the microwave, mommy wouldn't feel good. And so we had to know all of those things. There were a lot of details that we had to know, but there was the balance, right? Like she said, where she didn't give us the biggest traumatic details about maybe like specifically what the procedure was going to do, and you know what I mean? Just little things like that, where it's like protecting us from from things that would keep us up at night, but letting us know realistically what was going on. So yeah.
So I would also add,
go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, one last thing. Every trip that we made, whether it was to an emergency room, to a hospital, to an appointment, it didn't matter where we went, how bad it was. We made it fun for the kids. So if I was on my way to have surgery and I knew I was like overly stressed, I would say, okay, I can't eat, but why don't we get us, a Sunday? Like we would make sure that trip to the hospital, that hospital stay, there was something that they would look up to. I would have sometimes even order like little toys or stickers from online and just surprise them with little coloring books and little things that were new to them. And they would be excited about little silly things. But, just have them the expectation of doing something fun for them, because being in the hospital, it was definitely not a fun. It was just like
right. Of course not.
I think that's what allowed us to keep our light through the situation. So yeah, very important, that part.
Now I have one last question for you all, and Ethan, I'm going to start with you. And this may not be such a fair question, but we'll see how you do with it. So looking back, and you can consider this full almost 17 years, right? Is there anything you wish you could have said to yourself during that time, knowing what you know now?
Said to myself?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a deep question.
That's what I do, baby.
Honestly, no, not really. I'm kind of satisfied with how everything turned out. I mean, I feel like as a kid, I'm glad that I knew what I did. I'm glad that I did what I did. I mean, obviously, I'm like, now that I'm older and more mature, and I'm like, okay, I wish I could have done more. I wish I was able to do more. But the kid I feel like I did what I could based off of what I knew. And I feel like the people around me also helped take that weight off my shoulders too. So it's like, if I had to tell myself anything, just, I don't know, like keep going or something, It's like, there's a lot going on. It's a lot of stressful moments, but it's like, at no point did I feel like everything was falling apart. I just kept going day by day. So I would just say keep going. But I'm happy with how everything turned out. I think everything went best case scenario.
So you don't think looking back, you would tell yourself, don't tell your mom she looks terrible?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That's changed my answer. Because I'm telling you, I don't remember that happening. I don't remember that happening. I didn't even come across my mind.
Same.
That wasn't the question. I just said it as a joke. Taylor, how about you?
I think my biggest thing would be, I think I would tell myself that it's okay to ask for help and to verbalize my emotions, because just being transparent, that's something I think I struggle with now, even with this, especially with this and with other things. Asking for help and verbalizing your emotions can make you like if you bottle it up, too much, it's gonna come out. It's like when you shake a soda can, it's gonna, it's gonna explode. Or I have the analogy of like trying to put nails in a Ziploc bag. You can fit a couple in there at a short amount of time, but you put 60 nails in there, that Ziploc bag is gonna open up and you can't reclose it, and it's a hot mess. And so I think learning how to process your emotions and deal with things, yes, learning how to deal with things on your own, but realizing that you don't really have to. Understanding that there's a support system, even if you can't necessarily see the support system, there's a support system for you online. We have the internet nowadays, where it's like there may be a lot of kids who their parents may be single parents, they may not have a big family. I'm pretty sure there's a support system for you online. There's an organization that you can reach out to that I don't know, may be able to provide your child more emotional support. And so I think I would probably tell myself back then, like, it's okay to talk more to your teachers, or talk to your counselors, or talk to your school preacher, your church pastor, about what you're going through, what's going on. Ask for help with your homework. And I think it's because at that time I realized that I couldn't really come to my parents with extra problems. I knew for a fact that if I was going through something, at school, it was like the last resort would be to tell my parents. Absolute last resort. Because mommy is upstairs fighting for her life. Dad is trying to hold everything together and possibly fighting for his life too, mentally, emotionally. And so I think there were several times where I remember this one time I was really struggling in my English class. And then my mom, it found its way to my mom a little bit after it was too late. Like it was already on my progress report and I'd already failed the test or something like that. And my mom found out, and then she had to be the one to go and contact my teacher. And I hated that. And that was frustrating for her too. But at the same time, I feel like it was partially my responsibility at that time. Maybe not responsibility, but kids should know you can reach out for help to other people so that you don't add extra stress to your parents. So just knowing that that's an option and encouraging children to do that, because all it's going to do is stress the child out rather than stressing the parents. It's going to stress out somebody. So reaching out for help and being vocal about your emotions. Yeah.
That's great input. Alicia, I'm going to let you speak to that as the direct mother, about children feeling that when parents are going through, or families going through this type of fight, can they come to their parents and talk to them? How from the person's point of view who was going through the fight? Tell us your thoughts on that.
I would say definitely. I was always open to my kids coming to me and letting me know what was going on. In fact, being involved in the day-to-day, and also being involved into what's going on with them was extremely important to me. I think Taylor felt like she didn't want to overburden me, but to be honest with you, that to me was never a burden, because that was me having the ability to continue to be a regular mom. And as a sick person, and I say sick because when you're going through cancer and such a diagnosis, everybody tries to treat you like you're the sick person and like you're not able to do a lot of things. And having the ability to being able to parent was actually important to me. So in my view, my children never had to worry about not telling me, but I also do understand why they perceived it that way. I would say the important part for me was to talk to their teachers ahead of time. And 99.9% of the teachers were very receptive to my feedback, and they were on top, and they were communicating with them. And if they felt like their child was falling behind, they would reach back out directly to me, and they would offer tutoring after school, or I would say, she's an A student, but this one project, I don't know if she's working on it. Can you keep an eye on it? We had good open lines of communication. I would also say there's always those one or two individuals in the school system that may not necessarily
Mhm.
be at their best, for their own personal reasons. And I think the kids and I encounter those situations on multiple occasions when I was going through my worst fight, when the kids were actually going through their worst. They had teachers that were making it harder and holding them accountable for things that in many situations they were not even responsible for. So for example, if they had a project and they needed supplies and I was in the hospital and Rick had been working and taking me back and forth to the hospital, maybe he didn't get a chance to go get their supplies. So they did their best with whatever they had at home, which might not be the best, outcome. And there were some teachers that instead of understanding, oh, this child is going through this, let me see if there's a way that I can support them, they would actually make it worse. And I had a couple of those situations. One that comes to mind is that Taylor lost a role in a play. She was the lead in a play, and she learned all the songs. And I remember I had to travel. And when we came back, she had missed one session. And because she missed the one session, she was told that she was no longer the lead and she needed to train the backup. And she was so heartbroken. And I remember me calling the teacher and said, this is what's going on. I said, I mean, you know what I've been going through for the past 2-3 years. This is really difficult. And she told me that her decision was made and she was not going to change her mind. So that one situation is one that comes to mind, not because it was important to me, but it was extremely important to Taylor. This was one of the most important things in her life for that year that she had been preparing for. And it was taken away from her because I was under treatment and I had to travel. And that was tough for me to absorb. And there was no making up on that. I mean, so what I would say is keeping the lines of communication open with the teachers and having them as engaged as possible. And also understanding that there are going to be situations that as a parent, no matter how much you do, some situations are going to get out of hand, and you have to teach your children that it is okay that, some things are going to fall through the cracks and we're not going to do our best. And it is okay. It is okay for things not to go perfectly, and that is life, and that we have to pick ourselves up and move forward the best positive way. That I would say, as a mom, the kids continuing to, or as a parent, it is important for the kids to keep open lines of communication with the parent as well. The kids do not burden us parents. We look forward to our kids communicating with us so that we can help them or finding the support that it's needed. If we are not able to be the support, then find them the proper support.
Yeah. And as you were talking, Alicia, something my mom always says to me came to mind, and it is so fitting for this conversation. And that is, we always recover. And of course, it wasn't our conversations have never been directly related to this topic, but boy, is it fitting in this moment, right?
Yeah.
I thank you so very much, Alicia, Taylor, and Ethan, for sitting down and being open, being transparent to help someone else. I thank you for allowing your story to be told through Connected by Heartbeat. As I said earlier, this is our family time that we are talking about families and just loving on the fact that we have families to love on. And family is different and everybody's does. And families go through different types of struggles and journeys. But for you to sit and tell us yours, to share with people that will listen to this video, allows them to realize that there's hope on the other side, that they can get through it. I love the things that you told them to do. Ethan, I have to hear you play some instruments one day. But thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it. It has been very mind opening for me, and opened my mind up to things that I would have never thought of. Has encouraged me on many different levels. So I thank you so very much, Alicia. God bless you. We are so thankful that you are continually in recovery. And let's do a 15-year update, right? Where we could talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes, yes,
Hey,
yes, yes.
hey. Thank you
And
all
I
for
will
joining us
say,
today. I am Jessica Simpson Taylor, and this is Connected by Heartbeat, where we are committed to helping you build a more connected and emotionally enriched world. Y'all have a great one. We'll see you next
Bye
time.
bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you so
bye, thank
much.
you.
It starts with a name, it starts with a smile, bringing us closer, connecting for a while. We share our stories, we share our hearts, each name a spark that connects our heart.